faint. But there's just such an expectation, and I believe that God is going to meet your expectation today. Whatever expectation that you came in here with, I believe that you are going to leave with it being met by God. And so, the theme for this month is evolve. Evolve. Pastor Carl began to make a declaration that this year will be a year that we evolve.
Amen.
But if you look at the word evolve on the back of the wall, there's another word that's intertwining with it. And the word that is intertwining with it is love. If you look at the letters, you can see that love is also in the word evolve. And so this year is going to be a year where we evolve in love. We're not going to just evolve, but we're going to evolve in love. Now, some of you who go here, you probably like, dang, we always talking about love at RWC. Like, are we going to talk about something else? Why we always got to talk about love? These are some of the questions that I ask God whenever he wants us to speak. I'm like, we always talking about love. But love is literally in the DNA of RWC. Because we believe here in loving people first. And so it's hard to talk about God and not talk about love, because God is love. So whenever you talk about God, you can always find love. And so, because we're talking about the word evolve, what evolve means, according to the dictionary, is to come forth gradually into being. It means to be developed. So this year, we're going to come forth gradually into being. Being what? Love. Love is who we are, and love is who God says that you are. And so we're going to evolve in love. Now, I want you to look at your neighbor for a minute, and I want you to ask them, are you ready to evolve in love?
Are you ready to evolve?
Are you ready to evolve in love? Now, when I began to look at the word evolve, the example that came to my mind was a butterfly. We all know that the butterfly undergoes many stages. It actually undergoes 4 stages. And the 4 stages that a butterfly goes is, it's first an egg, then a caterpillar, then it becomes the chrysalis or the cocoon, and then it becomes the butterfly. And literally, this is what evolving in love looks like. It looks like the 4 stages of a butterfly. Because one thing about evolving is that it's not something that happens overnight. It's a process. And literally, just as a caterpillar goes through a process, you are going to go through a process this year. Gradually coming forth. When you look at the word gradually, it means bit by bit, inch by inch, and step by step. But the problem that we have with the word evolve or evolving is we don't want to wait for change. If you're like me, I want change to happen immediately. I want change to just occur, like, bam, I'm good. There ain't nothing else that needs to be done. But often, sometimes, when change doesn't happen as fast as we want it to happen, we want to give up. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. Often, when change doesn't happen as fast as I would like, often I want to give up. But sometimes when you look at the word giving up, when someone gives up, it's not something that just happens immediately. It's literally a slow decline. when someone has given up. You start to pull back. You start to do less and less. And then eventually, you're doing nothing. So giving up is not something that happens overnight. So now, I'm going to go into the message for this morning. I just wanted to give you some background on the word evolve. But the title for the sermon this morning is Don't Give Up, Evolve. If we can go to Joshua chapter 1, and we're going to start at the first verse. And I want you to think about those words as I'm going through this sermon this morning. Don't give up, evolve. Joshua chapter 1, verse 1. And we're going to read to verse 2. And this is the first scripture of many. I have many scriptures this morning. Hopefully, I get to them all. Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, cross this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, the sons of Israel. So here you see where Moses was leading the people. He was the leader at that time. Well, Moses had died. So it was time for somebody else to lead the people. And so because Joshua was already serving alongside of Moses, it was him up next to lead the people. So my first point in evolving in love is that it's your turn. Can you make that declaration that it's my turn? It's your turn to be the leader of love. Often, and I'll speak for myself, is we wait for other people to love us. We wait for other people to reach out to us. But as we are evolving in love this year, we can no longer wait or be hesitant to lead a charge of love. God is charging you to lead love. He's not charging your spouse to lead love. He's not charging your children to lead love. He's not charging your friend or your pastor to lead love. But he's charging you to lead love because it's your turn to lead love. Now, before we can evolve in leading love, you first have to know that God has called you to love. Even though we come to church, we don't always believe that, God, you've called me to love other people. I didn't believe that when I first started coming back and coming to church, when I first came to RWC. I didn't really know what love was. I thought I knew what love was, but I didn't really understand what love was. So because I didn't really understand it, I couldn't lead it. And so even this morning, there is an understanding of love that God is going to begin to develop within you in this year so that you can lead love. But the problem with leading and leading love is that you must first be the initiator. If we're going to evolve in love, I have to become an initiator of love. If you're like me, all my life, I waited to be called upon. I didn't just say, hey, I'll do it. Hey, I didn't volunteer myself to do anything. But being an initiator means that I'm going to do it first, even if no one else does it. Yeah. Evolving in love this year is you're going to love first, even if no one else loves you first. I don't know about you, but growing up, we've been taught unintentionally by people that If you do it first, then I'll do it. But I ain't going to be the first to do it because, I don't want to be rejected. When you think about girlfriend and boyfriends, I was always growing up, the guy makes the first move. The guy asks the woman to marry him. And that is all true. But when it comes to being in relationship with God and in relationship with other people, you cannot wait for someone to love you first. Because in 1 John 4:19, it says, we love because he first loved us. Even Jesus was an initiator of love. He loved us even when we did not love him. And as we're evolving in love this year, you're going to be called to love some people who will not love you back. You're going to be called to love some people who will literally take what you're giving them, throw it on the ground, and stomp on it. But even besides that, when you know that you are called to be loved and to walk in love, even when others do not love you back, you will still love. But before we can lead love, we first have to let go of all the false images of love that has been taught to us unintentionally by people in our life growing up. I can almost guarantee you everybody in this room in some form or fashion has a false image of love that God is going to deal with today. There's some things we have seen and some things we have experienced with this word called love that was not love. It wasn't God's love. We've experienced some love from parents that wasn't love. We've experienced love from a boyfriend or girlfriend that wasn't love. Even pastors. Pastors struggle with love. Pastors are not always perfect. You may have had a pastor in your life who wasn't a very good display of love. And so because sometimes we don't have a good representation of love, we can't always lead it the way that God has called us to lead it. But can I tell you that sometimes God will use you to be the very thing that nobody was to you. Sometimes he will use you to be the example of something that you didn't get. And literally that is what God is going to be doing as we are evolving in love this year. Because evolving in love is letting go of the old ways of love. See, for me, I've been rejected so many times in my life. I was the overlooked one, the one because I was quiet and I was shy and I was reserved. People treated me like I didn't have nothing to say, like I didn't have nothing to offer. And so because of that, when the Lord began to tell me that I've called you to be loved and I've called you to extend love, I was afraid to do it because of the rejection. And so literally today, there is some rejection that God is going to begin to break as we are evolving in this thing called love. When you begin to look at the caterpillar, when he goes into the stage of the cocoon, what is happening during that stage is that he's letting go of the old parts because they're being transformed. There are some old parts in you that God is transforming as we are evolving. Joshua had to evolve from being a servant to a leader. I don't know if you know how hard that is. You go from serving to leading. I went from being a youth pastor to being a senior co-pastor. And it's ugly at times. It hurts sometimes. See, it's different from trying to lead from the background. See, some of us have been trying to lead love from the background. Oh, I'm going to lead love at a distance because I don't want to get up close and personal with love because I might get hurt. But literally, God is calling some of us out of the background of love into the forefront of love so that you can truly be the representation of Jesus Christ's love here in the earth. See, I like being in the background. I like being where you are, sitting right there. That's comfortable. There's no risk in that. But see, when you leave, you have to take risks. See, love is risky, and that's why nobody wants to love. Because it's risky. It will cost you yourself. I cannot tell you how many times I cried and I fussed and I pouted at God because I didn't want to love people that didn't love me back. I only wanted to love people that loved me. But as we are evolving in love, you just can't love people who love you. That's not real love. Real love is loving those people who do not love you back. That's real love. See, you'll know when somebody is truly filled with the love of Christ because they're able to love even when love is not reciprocated. And so, as God was transforming Joshua from a servant to a leader, and as he transformed me from a youth pastor to a senior co-pastor, the important part, this is the important part about evolving, is that you're leaving what you are not and coming forth into who God has destined you to be all along. You have to leave what you are not in order to come forth into being love, which God ordained for us before we even got here. You have to leave unforgiveness. You are not unforgiveness. We have to leave rejection. You are not rejection. I am not rejection. You have to leave hate. You are not hate. You are not pride. See, these are the things that we have to begin to say about ourselves if we're going to lead love. We have to first say, I am not unforgiveness.
Yeah.
I am not rejection. I am not pride. I am love. You are love. Your name, literally, to God is love. And it's your turn to lead this movement called love. Because, see, love is a movement. Only those who really want to be sold out can lead it. Only those who really will say, God, I will give up what I think. I will give up my emotions. I will give up this pain. I will literally lay my life on the line for this thing called love to be displayed in the earth. Because too many times, literally, God would show me too many times we have Christians who are not showing the true love of God. How can I be a Christian and not possess what the Father possessed? See, in this year of evolving, we're literally going to possess what He possessed. Because as He is, so are we in this world. And because He was love, I shall be love. See, I don't want to be a Christian who say and talk about love, but not love. I don't want to be a Christian who say with my mouth, but my heart is far from what I'm saying. See, in evolving, our hearts have to connect with this thing called love. But the reason why it's so hard is because we get tired of loving. Who's not afraid to say, I get tired of loving people? I'm going to raise my hand. We get tired of loving people, especially people who are not always pleasant. Yeah. But I want you to go to this scripture, Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Galatians chapter 6, starting at verse 9. Because now we're talking about being tired of love. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And I'm going to read it out of the NLT version. It says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Don't give up. Evolved. We can't get tired of doing good. Love and loving people is doing good. He's not just talking about doing good works, serving in a church, helping other people. No, he's talking about don't get tired of loving my people. So, I want to talk about this word being tired for a minute. Because one thing about me is when I get tired, I also get frustrated, I also get impatient, and I also get easily angry when I get tired. But sometimes when we get tired too fast, and when we don't see results from or gain anything from loving, it's so easier to quit.
Yeah.
Or you may be where it seems like things are getting worse instead of better.
Oh, say that.
See, on this journey of love, sometimes it's going to get worse before it gets better. But when it's getting worse, that's when we want to give up. And so sometimes that's why we're not seeing the fruit of what we are doing and what we're giving, because we have given up too soon.
Yeah, too soon.
But the scripture says that we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up.
Yeah.
Can I tell you that some of you have already given up and you don't know you have given up? Some of us have already given up on love, and we don't even know we have given up. But the way you know you have given up is when you're not seeing the fruit of what you're doing. See, when I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm like, God, I need to see some fruit. I need to see some results from what I'm doing and what I'm giving. So just as a sidebar, if you are not seeing fruit, if you are not seeing any growth, any change from loving, you might want to check and see if you have given up. You might want to check and see if you have gotten tired and frustrated in the process. But this brings me to my next point. In evolving in love, when we get tired and when we get frustrated, we start to judge things before it's timing. Evolving in love. If we are going to evolve in love, you can't judge a thing before it's time. And I'm going to read that in the scripture, because in the scripture, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, and we're going to start at verse 5. And I'm going to read it out of the NASB Bible this time. Therefore, do not go on passing judgment before the time, but wait until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the things hidden in the darkness and disclose the motives of men's hearts, and then each man's praise will come to him from God. How many times have you judged someone or something while they were in their process? Because the thing about evolving is that you are in a process of change. And it's something that occurs over and over and over and over again. It's continuous. But how many times have we judged someone because they wasn't there yet, wherever there is for you? Because we all have a there, I'm not there yet. I know for me, I'd be like, Lord, this thing called preaching, I ain't there yet. Like, I'm struggling, like this is hard. But sometimes our there is not his there.
Right.
And so sometimes we judge things before it's timing. Because one thing I want you to know is that everybody that you see in this room is in a process of change. And some people are changing more quickly than others, and some may be like a turtle and they're going slow with their change and their evolving. But I want you to look at your neighbor and say, what you see me to be now is not what you're going to always see.
It's not what you're always going to see.
What you see now is not what you're going to always see if you do not judge the thing before it's time. See, one thing about it is that we are all incomplete in our process of change. God has not yet perfected us. That's why we are all still here on this earth. Because the true perfection is going to be when we leave this earth. So as long as we are on this earth, we will forever and always be evolving into who God has called us to be.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I can't judge my sister when she's having a bad day. I can't judge my husband when he's getting on my nerves. I can't judge my children when they're not acting the way that I need them to act. Because we judge our children too. You be like, look, come on, you're making me look bad now. I'm going to need you to do better than that. We may not say those words, but that's how we feel on the inside. Like, man, you're making me look bad. But what you see now is not what it's going to always be. If you have a child, a husband, a friend, what you see now is not what's going to always be. And we must keep our mouths closed while we are in the process. Friday, I was ugly crying. Y'all know the ugly crying, right? That cry where you just can't even talk because you're crying so much. That was me on Friday. As I was going through this sermon, the Lord began to prick my heart where I judged things before their timing. And I couldn't do nothing but cry and weep because I was so sorrowful about it. And I'm going to talk about it. I want to testify about it, actually, to show you just the example of judging things before their timing. I have been judging my husband we've been married for 10 years. And pretty much for the whole 10 years, I have been judging him. How? Over the last 3 years, we became the lead pastors here at Restoration. In the last 3 years, that first year, he like nervous, scared, like what did we just get ourselves into? So whenever he had to prepare or preach a word, literally everything at the house, I needed to take care of by myself. And on Saturday nights, almost every Saturday night, he would come up here to the church. And I didn't like that. I'm like, it don't even take all that. Like, why are you doing all that? Like, chill, it's going to be all right. Like, God got it. Isn't that what we do to people? Like, chill out. Like, God got it. Well, I've been on my journey of preaching. And I didn't realize how hard that it was. I went from preaching once a month to every other Sunday. And that's the difference. Oh, I come here flying, yeah, you know, it's my Sunday to preach or whatever, I'm done, and I won't preach for another month or something. So it was easy. So I thought until I finally planted my feet into what God was calling me to be, into where I stepped up to the plate and said, okay, God, you've called me to preach this word. I'm going to embrace it. See, there's something about embracing what God has called you to do. Because you know what? That's when the fight begins to happen. That's when the struggle begins to occur. I cannot tell you the last couple of times I've been preparing my sermons, I have been crying in a struggle. God, why did you choose me to do this? This is way too hard, God. People don't understand me. God, I think I'm talking foreign. These are the things that I'm saying to God. But because I judged my husband in his process, I minimized what he was doing, and I maximized what I was doing. I was saying like, man, that ain't nothing. Like, you can help me with these kids. You can do this. You can do that. And still preparing your sermon. Literally, y'all, when I'm preparing to preach, I literally can't have my kids. Because when you're preaching, it's a lot of praying and a lot of meditating that goes on. And you know, my kids, they want to always be around me. And they are loud and obnoxious. So I can't study with him. But I was getting on him and judging him for what he was doing when he was preparing his sermon. Now look at me. So that's why we cannot judge a thing before its timing. Because when you look at Pastor Carl now, he don't come up here no more on Saturdays like that. He has now evolved, and he's still evolving into what God has called him to do and be. And so that's why it's important not to put your mouth on a masterpiece of God. Everybody in this room is God's masterpiece. I don't care how messy they may look or how ratchet they may be. They are God's masterpiece. Because if we're honest, we can be ratchet, y'all. I know I can be ratchet, and my husband know my ratchetness. And some of y'all have seen my ratchetness who was close to me. We all have a little bit of ratchet, even you men. A lot of times we look at women and be like, they ratchet and this and that, but some men have ratchet ways too.
Amen.
But literally the point is that we cannot put our mouths on something that's evolving. Because the thing about evolving is that it is not completed. See, we're trying to complete other people's processes for them. And that's not for us to do. We're the pastors of this church, but it's not up to us to complete your process for you. It's up to you. That's between you and God. And so literally the Lord, I'm telling you, y'all, I was so humbled in that moment when I see how I was minimizing what my husband was doing and maximizing what I was doing, saying what I was doing was better than what he was doing. And we do that as husbands and wives, brothers and sisters. We minimize what's going on in someone else's lives and maximize what we're doing. And we can't do that because that's judging a thing before its time. And so, if we're honest, everyone in this room still lack, in some form or fashion, with love. There are still some areas in our lives where we need to grow and love. But the good news is that God's love has not yet been completed in us. And I want to read that from, go to Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. God's love has not yet been completed in us. Philippians 1, verse 6. For I am confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Christ Jesus. No one knows when Jesus is coming, so we will always be a work in progress. We will always be being perfected. And so literally this year, God is going to perfect those things concerning you. If you are concerned about love, he's going to perfect his love in you. If you're concerned about grace and compassion, he's going to perfect that in you. Whatever concerns you, God is going to perfect it in you. But you have to have patience. Patience is like a cuss word to me, y'all. When I hear patience, I'm like, ooh. Because I am a very impatient person. Like, on the outside, I look like I'm just, everything is going to be all right. But on the inside, I'm like, frantic. Hurry up, God. Why I'm not seeing it yet? But literally, this is the third point, is that if we're going to evolve in love, it's going to require your patience in the process. If we're honest, we are not as patient as we should be. I will speak for myself. I am not as patient as I should be. That was literally when I was communing with God about this year. I said, God, help me to be more patient. I was literally disgusted at myself for 2018 because of all the times that I was impatient with myself, impatient with my children, and impatient with my husband, that I was just like, this is not right. Like, this is not you, God. Like, I'm up here professing and proclaiming the word of God, but I can't have patience. And so, evolving in love, love is patient. We all know the scripture, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. The first sentence is, love is patient. When I begin to look at the word patience, patient means to suffer long, to endure. Long. Long may be 3 months. Long may be 1 year. Long may be 5 years. Jesus. But it said that love is patient. Love endures. Love endures with difficult people. Love endures with inconsistent people. Love endures with mean people. These are all the people that I have to have patience with. These are all the people we all have to have patience with, because we are all evolving. And so because we're all evolving, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt people that we love. We're going to do things that we shouldn't do, because we're in a process of evolving. And guess what? It's okay. Literally, I have to tell myself that it's okay to not have it all together. See, that's the problem with evolving, is that we want to have it all together. We don't want nobody to see our struggles. We don't want nobody to see our mistakes. We don't want nobody to see our wretchedness. And so we try to hold things together, and it doesn't do anything but make you burst, and then you showing all of what's going on with you. But literally, that was when I learned over 2018 that it's okay to not have it all together. Because if you're like me, you want to have it all together. You want to make everybody happy. You want to do the right thing. But that is an unrealistic expectation. We have some unrealistic expectations in our relationship with Christ. And you know what? You need to get rid of it. I had to get rid of that unrealistic expectation that I need to have it all together. I don't need to have it all together, because why? We're evolving. And when you're evolving, it gets dirty. It gets messy. You will cry. You will scream and pout if you're like me. I cry when things are hard. I mean, I do. I just cry. And I was like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, it's just hard. Like, I don't know why I'm crying. But one thing that I know is this. Everybody in this room, outside of your spouse and your children, you want to know who's going to love me when I am being my ratchet self with no filter. Who is going to be patient with me when I don't want to be Pastor Tenisha? When I want to be Tenisha, Colleen Smalls. A lot of us wonder that. You may not verbalize it. But literally, as I was going through this sermon, I could literally hear those words ringing over and over in my ear. That who is going to love me when I am being my righteous self? I do have a small group, and when I say a small group of people that I know that I can go to and be unfiltered, because I know they will still love me, and I know they will still honor me as their pastor. Now, you can't do it with everybody. But God will surround you with some people who will be patient enough to carry your burdens. We all have burdens, and that's what it means to be patient, is to carry someone else's burden. Being patient means I give you permission to mess up. Have you ever given someone permission to mess up? Let's go to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2. Because we're talking about patience. Having patience. And this is what having patience looks like. And I'm going to read it out of the Amplified version. Living as becomes you, with complete lowliness of mind, humility, and meekness, unselfishness, gentleness, mildness, with patience, bearing with one another, and making allowances because you love one another. That word stuck out to me, making allowances. Making allowances for what? That's my first thought, is what am I making an allowance for? What you're making an allowance for is for someone else's sin, someone else's foolishness. It's not saying agree with it, but it's saying to make allowance for it. And when I begin to look at making an allowance for someone else's sin or someone else's mistake and their flaws and their faults, what that is saying is to pardon it, to excuse it. Having patience with someone means that you are excusing their behavior. You're pardoning it. In other words, you're forgiving. If we're going to evolve in this thing called love, we're gonna have to be forgiving. Every single day, I almost guarantee you, you have to forgive someone. Forgiveness should be a daily part of our lives because we are dealing with a lot of imperfect people. And so because we're imperfect, we're going to do things that will need forgiveness. And so making an allowance for someone means that I forgive you for what you have done, and I forgive you for what you are about to do. Even though I don't know what it is yet. I already forgive you for what you're about to do because I have patience, because I'm going to make allowance for your faults. I'm going to make allowance for it. I'm going to give you permission to be in your process. See, God has given you permission to be in your process. He's given you permission to evolve in your process. Sometimes we can't have patience with other people because we don't have patience with ourselves. Wow. If we're honest, when you mess up, I can almost guarantee you kind of beat yourself over the head or hang it over your head. I know I've done it. It was hard for me to extend patience to other people because I didn't have patience with myself. And literally, God is saying that to some of you all today. Have patience with yourself. Have patience with your process. Don't have patience for the next person. First, have patience for yourself with where God has you. And so in closing, as we stand, we are in the process of evolving in love. But before we can evolve in love, you first have to know that it's your turn to step up and rise up in love. You have to first know that you can't judge a thing before it's timing. Don't judge your process before it is finished. In evolving in love, we have to have patience. We can't be easily irritated or frustrated with ourselves and with the next person. We have to have patience. And so if you are here today and you know that God is calling you to evolve in love, to evolve into a place that you have not been before, I want you to come forward. Because literally, there is a grace that I know God is getting ready to release in this room. A grace.